Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at Learn 24. I am joined today. My name is Deborah Eichenbaum. I'm a grants management specialist with the Office of Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. We refer to ourselves as either the OST office or Learn 24. And I'm joined this evening by Alex Brown and Ashley Grant. I'm going to do some of the presentation. Ashley's going to do another part of the presentation. Alex is always here as support. Any questions you might have, please add into the chat box at any time. And we will also pause during the presentation for you to ask any questions you might have. So as an overview, the request for applications as subcontractor to Learn 24 grantees, programming at DC Housing Authority and/or Department of Human Services sites for the summer of 2022 is what we're here for today. And this is our most unusual information session. And when I say that, what I mean is that it's because the funding will not come directly from Learn 24 for these opportunities. The Learn 24 will collect the applications, but it is on behalf of the Learn 24 grantees, also known as coordinating entities. And those are the organizations that will provide the summer camp programs for youth that reside at DCHA and DHS housing locations. So I'm going to just give you a little explanation of the terms. So coordinating entity. Coordinating entities, as I said, are the organizations, they're nonprofit organizations that will coordinate full service summer camp experiences for children and youth that reside at DCHA and or DHS short-term family housing sites. These coordinating entities are required by the terms of their grant agreement with the OST office. They are required to subcontract with community-based grassroots businesses, nonprofits, or individuals to provide educational, social, emotional, and/or physical health opportunities and activities for children and youth as part of their summer camp schedule. The term vendor and subcontractor you're going to hear tonight, and we use those terms interchangeably. The coordinating entity, RFA. The coordinating entity request for applications was released October 29th, and it was due on December 6th. The OST office will announce those awarded organizations later this month. The OST office also collaborates with DCHA and DHS to help create these full-day summer camp opportunities for the children, and the youth do need to be, our funds can only support youth that are ages 5 to 17 for all of our grants. So the coordinating entities can only support youth that are ages 5 to 17 with our grant funds. And part of those grant funds, as I said, will be subcontracted to the subcontractors and or vendors. So the summer camps at DCHA and DHS. The final decisions on which sites will be selected will be announced when the coordinating entity grantees are announced later this month. The coordinating entities or our grantees will select the subcontractors. That is completely up to them who they select. Learn 24 collects the applications and we ensure eligibility, which I'll get into in just a little bit. The subcontractors will be contacted directly by the coordinating entities by the end of May. So a couple of questions and answers that we often get. How will the coordinating entity grantees be selected and when? As I said before, those will be announced the end of this month, and the coordinating entity grantees are selected based on a review of the application that they submitted by 3 independent grant reviewers who are trained, and an interview with representatives from the Deputy Mayor for Education's office, or or all of these different entities. DME, Deputy Mayor for Education's office, DCHA, DC Housing Authority, DHS, which is Department of Human Services, the resident councils, parents, and or youth that reside at the some of the locations. The coordinating entity request for application is closed. It closed on December 6th. But the subcontractor request for application is still open, and the deadline to apply is April 18th. And hopefully that's what you're all here for. So as I said, I'm going to get into vendor eligibility. And that is one of the things that we will check. The OST office will check before we send the applications to the coordinating entities. These are the things that have to be provided with the application. A clean hand certificate from the DC Office of Tax and Revenue, often known as OTR, and that needs to be dated April 18th, 2021 or later, meaning April 19th, 2021, May 19th, 2021, any time up until from April 18th, 2021 through April 18th, 2022. The maximum income or revenue of the organization cannot exceed $250,000. If your organization is more than, has revenue of greater than $250,000, you are not eligible to apply as a vendor or subcontractor. None of the applicants can use a fiscal agent. The program must have been provided at some time within the past 5 years, so it can't be a new program, and it can't be more than 5 years that the program has not been provided for. You either must already be or be willing to become registered to do business in DC. So individuals can apply, however, you will need to register as a business with the DCRA, which is escaping me what that means right now.
Regulatory Affairs.
Thank you, Alex. You will need to provide a budget of the programming costs and be willing to work with the coordinating entity. And if you were a prior vendor or subcontractor with any coordinating entity, you must be in good standing with that coordinating entity, including all of the compliance measures that they asked for in the memorandum of understanding that you entered into with the coordinating entity, if you were a prior vendor. So, vendor expectations. This, of course, is going to be ironed out in any memorandum of understanding that you would enter into with the coordinating entity. However, generally, it would be to program for a minimum of 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. Those specific hours will be negotiated with the coordinating entity. Sometimes it won't be, they'll ask for 2.5 hours a day, 4 days a week, because they want to take 1 day a week so that they can do field trips with their youth, for example. But again, those are the details that would be discussed between you and the coordinating entity. The time frame for the 6 weeks, and it will be a consecutive 6 weeks, is any time between June 13th and August 27th. Again, each coordinating entity will decide the 6 weeks that they want to provide programs. The vendor will need to collect daily attendance and submit that to the coordinating entity. They will need to complete all background checks prior to the start of camp. The OST office does subsidize background checks, or certain background checks. You will need to also have qualified and cleared substitutes available. So if you are a one-person shop and you get sick, we need to know that there's someone able to step into your shoes in a moment's notice. That means that they have to have full clearances submitted. All staff will attend a training and an orientation. As I said before, you must be registered to do business in DC or be willing to become registered. You do need, as with any grant, you will need to maintain documents for 5 years, and you will need to provide certificates of insurance to the coordinating entity. And again, that would be discussed with the coordinating entity. Applicants must be 18 years of age or older. And no fees can be charged for any of the programs. A couple of more questions and answers. So should a business apply to program for 2-hour blocks or for the full day program? We get this question a lot. Programs should apply for a 2-hour block, and the reason is that the intent of this RFA is to allow for a variety of providers and programs that can offer a lot of different opportunities to the children and youth at the various sites. So that way, that's why the coordinating entities will look at all of the applications, and they're going to decide what their vision is for the camp. And maybe their vision is, well, we want 2 hours of soccer and 2 hours of reading, followed by 2 hours of knitting and sewing, followed by 2 hours of gardening. That's their vision. And maybe somebody doesn't apply that does knitting and sewing. So they're like, oh, well, I got to change what I was thinking and let me see what else there is. Okay. So what are the actual weeks that the camps will run? The application says it's between June 13th and August 27th. And that's exactly right, because it has to be sometime in that period of time for 6 weeks. And the coordinating entities will be the ones that decide which 6 weeks will the camp will run. And that again will be negotiated with the coordinating entity and the subcontractor if you are selected by the coordinating entity. Alex, can we do the next slide? Thank you. So payment. So vendors will enter into agreements directly with the coordinating entity for direct programming, for attendance at trainings or required meetings, and for reimbursements for approved supplies. Vendors must submit an invoice. A template will be provided if needed, and sometimes the template is required by the coordinating entity with a description of the services and expenses and original receipts for reimbursements. The memorandum of understanding that the subcontractor enters into with the coordinating entity will determine whether the all of the payment is done by reimbursement. Some coordinating entities will provide some upfront money, and then it is reimbursement at the end. It is again up to the coordinating entity and to be negotiated between the coordinating entity and the subcontractor. However, some of the things will be across all boards, which is original receipts must be maintained. You will not get paid without submitting original receipts. The invoices should be submitted every 2 weeks, and the invoices must be from the program period or from a time period that is approved by the coordinating entity. If you are asking for anything that is outside of the memorandum of understanding with your coordinating entity, make sure to get that in writing. Otherwise, the memorandum of understanding is what will be the guiding document. Personnel wages must be paid by a pre-approved and legal and verifiable method. And if any of the expectations are not met, the coordinating entity may withhold payment. So a couple of more questions and answers. What if I can't afford to front the payment for the background checks? Well, as I said before, background checks can be subsidized by the OST office. So let the coordinating entity know who you need background checks for, and they can go through a process subsidized by my office. And what if I lost a receipt or never received one? In that case, you will not be reimbursed for that expense. You must receive receipts for all expenses. Okay, transportation. So programming may be held off-site, and depending on the health situation this summer, may be virtual or hybrid, but we are definitely hoping and expecting that in-person programming will be held all summer. Subcontractors are responsible for safe transportation to and from locations, and this must be described in the application. So if you are applying and saying, I expect to program kids at X location, you can do that. However, you need to explain how you're getting the kids there and how you're getting them back. The time needs to be taken into account. The safe transportation needs to be taken into account. If you're asking for 1 day a week for a field trip, that needs to be taken into account. Anytime you talk about transportation, how you're doing it is very important. Transportation expenses can be reimbursed if they are part of the budget. The transportation must be only for staff and youth. And when I say staff, I mean that can include volunteers, anyone that is working with the program. And by the way, anyone, including volunteers, need to be background checked. Anyone who is over the age of 18. And all original receipts related to transportation must be maintained. So I'm going to pause here. I've just given you a lot of information. And I do see that we have Bishop Hill and Erwin Royster, who are they both work. They are both current coordinating entities. So if you have questions and you want to hear directly from one of the coordinating entities, they are happy to answer questions. I don't know if either of you can come on camera and introduce yourselves, but if so, please do. And if we have any questions.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Erwin Royster with East River Family Strengthening Collaborative, and happy to be here. I think this is probably our fourth year, or we've been doing this since 2018, in case I can't count.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for this this time and this platform area. And thank you, Alice, for getting me in. I'm Gary Hill, and I work with Exodus, one of the coordinating entities providing services in Ward 7 and 8. Thank you.
So does anybody have any questions? Was there anything in the chat, Alex?
Nope, we don't have anything in the chat. And if they do have questions, please either feel free to put it into the chat or come off mute. We have a small group here today, so welcome your feedback and we welcome your questions.
Okay, well, we're going to pause again later on. And at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my esteemed colleague, Ashley Grant.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again. My name is Ashley Grant. I'm a grants management specialist with the OST team, and I will be reviewing the second portion of this presentation today that includes the application process, the application submission, as well as the submission process and the selection process. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Alex. So the application process. So again, the deadline to apply to this RFA is Monday, April the 18th, 2022 at 5:00 p.m. And the documents that are required in this application process include the cover sheet, in which the applicant will complete that form in the Seamless Doc portal. The applicant will also electronically sign the certifications document that is found in Seamless Docs as well. The applicant is responsible to upload the experience, which is a 3-page narrative, no more than three pages that answer the 5 specific questions that are asked. The applicant also must upload 2 letters of support from community members or someone familiar with the program. Now, the letters of support should be from someone who knows your program, possibly youth, parents, contractors that you previously worked with. You can also submit letters from council members, although a letter from a council member who has heard of the program via Parents and Youth is great. It's awesome. It's less impactful than a letter that is coming directly from parents or youth. Also, the applicant must be sure to include in the application process a budget. And in that budget, they must include the estimated expenses for 6 weeks of programming. And then the last 2 documents that are required in the application process is the first page of a 2020 tax return or a full copy of the 990 form, and then finally the clean hand certificate dated for April the 18th, 2021 or later. Again, that deadline is Monday, April the 18th at 5:00 p.m. So the application submission process. So applicants will complete the online application at the link below, which is the Seamless Doc portal. The files must be uploaded at one time and cannot be saved. It's best practice to complete the cover sheet or the application first and then save that document in the portal. And then when you're ready to fully submit, you go back into the Seamless portal and upload all of the attachments that are required just to ensure that all of your documents are still there and ready to submit. There is a 250 megabyte limit on each file upload, but you can also upload multiple files at one time. A confirmation email will be sent to the email address provided in the contact information on the cover sheet. In the event that you don't receive a confirmation email, please contact the Learn24 email address, which is provided here, within 24 hours of submission. Please be advised that no late, incomplete, hard copies, or email applications will be submitted. All applications must be submitted through the Seamless Doc portal. So the submission process. So what you see here is a picture of the actual RFA that gives you an overview of the coordinating entities and what this RFA is about. This document gives you step-by-step instructions on how to submit, as well as eligibility requirements and vendor expectations as well. So this document, this picture here is a document of the cover sheet. So the cover sheet is also included in the RFA, but it's just as a reference only. The actual application will be, actual application that you will complete will be in Seamless Doc. And so I definitely encourage you to just review as you are completing the application in Seamless Doc to ensure that you have crossed all T's and dotted all I's. The mission process part 4, I believe. So on the left side of this picture, you see the area where you will upload the narrative. Remember, the narrative can be no more than 3 pages long, and the questions are included in that little box there. So you can upload your narrative in that section on the left. And then on the right side of the picture is the area where you can upload the attachments, which is the letters of support, the budgets, and then the budget documentation, which is a copy of the 2020 tax returns the 990 EZ forms. So submission process part 5. I think. So the files can be uploaded into the Seamless Docs portal a couple of different ways. They can be uploaded from your computer. They can be uploaded from a website URL, a Box account, a Dropbox account, a Gmail account, or a Google Drive account. Again, there is a 250 megabyte limit on each file. So just be aware of that when you are uploading documents, if you're uploading them from multiple. Oh, so multiple files can be uploaded at one time. Just be aware of the megabyte limit when you're uploading them at multiple uploads at one time. So the submission process. So to complete the application, you will just So when an applicant is ready to submit, you complete the application by clicking the Submit and Sign button that is at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. All items with a red asterisk must be completed before a document can be accepted and submitted. The select process. So final selections are made by the coordinating entities. The coordinating entities may ask for input from DC Housing Authority, Department of Human Services, or the OST office. There are guidelines available that can be used by the coordinating entity in the selection process. And these guidelines may be used for general assistance by the applicant when formatting answers to the experience questions portion of the application. No scores or comments will be provided to applicants. And in the event that an applicant is selected, that applicant will be notified directly from the coordinating entity. In the event that an applicant is not selected, the applicant will receive an email from the OST office. All right, another Q&A time, guys. So Q&As. So how will the selection process be done? So subcontractors will be selected by the coordinating entities with the assistance of the OST office, DC Housing Authority, Department of Human Services, and or the resident council. How will the logistics of different age groups and locations work? The coordinating entity is responsible for determining the logistics. The OST office, DC Housing Authority, and Department of Human Services will support the coordinating entity. And then how do I connect with the Summer Youth Employment Program youth to be a summer employer? Please contact the Department of Employment Service directly for further assistance and more information. Contact information. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is provided here. Also, you can post your questions or prompt your questions to the Learn24 email address that is provided here as well. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, you definitely could feel free to come off of mute to ask any questions. Yeah. No questions? It's a great group.
Wow, we were so good that there's no questions. Bishop Hill or Mr. Royster, did you think that we forgot anything that should be added?
No, it was very detailed from what I gather.
We tried.
Well, you accomplished.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Erwin. Looked like you did an excellent job. And again, we're happy to answer any itty bitty questions or any questions that may not seem so significant, or any concerns that you may have, or how the flow of things take place. Yeah, we're here to try and answer some any thoughts that you may have. But you guys always do awesome. The OST team. Ashley, you did a great job. I think this is my first presentation with you. So yeah, thank you. Deborah, of course, we've been doing this for a while, Deborah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, and Erwin, we've been together. Alex always keeps us straight. So appreciate you guys.
The only other thing that I would add is that we do have another presentation of the same material. So, if you got everything you needed, you would just hear it again. But if you know anybody else,